Nice stuff going on here. Today you're going to talk about boundaries a little bit. And if you all have been here before, you understand that most of what I talk about is what's happening in my life. So boundary issues are coming up a lot. Not so much with me as people coming in and being pissed off. So recently somebody sent me some stuff, a guy named Jeffrey Allen, about energy work. And I'm sharing it with you all. It seems really good stuff. So part of what he talks about is grounding. Like at the moment, if we were to imagine a cord of energy going from the tip of our spine to the very center of the earth and connecting with that center. And then if we were to imagine the cord being as wide as our body. And then if we were to imagine, well, we'll go ahead and ground the whole building. Yeah, why not? We could do that. Then the other thing, imagine a space between you and the next person. Imagine a space left in the room. Imagine a space between San Antonio and Dallas. Imagine a space between Dallas and London. Imagine a space between the Mother Earth and the sun. Being out there in that space. Kind of trippy. So, recently at a class somebody asked me to come to, a lady told me that she was easily offended. And what that meant to her is she was defending her boundaries. And we disagreed about that a little bit. When she said she was easily angered, easily offended, that translated to me as she's a leaf at the mercy of the wind. Somebody says something she doesn't like, she's upset. Somebody says something she agrees with, she's happy. And all of it is reflective. So she thinks she's defending her boundaries by being easily angered. And my thought is she's a leaf at the mercy of the wind. Those are two really different views. We didn't get too far with the discussion because she said I was offending her. So I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm just being me. And she said, well, I don't like you. And I said, okay, that's clear enough. We won't have lunch together. So boundaries is this thing that people talk about. My boundaries get violated and I have to protect my boundaries. And there's always a lot of curiosity about that. Sometimes when people say, and they're not talking about physical things, their boundaries being violated. They're talking about mostly emotional things, mental, emotional. If people say that the boundaries are violated, they must defend their boundaries. Sort of like it's almost like a battle or a war. And a lot of times it seems like they're talking about what they see in the world that they react to. And it seems like they're talking about when they react to people in the world, they contract. Their heart closes, the neuroplasticity stops, can't have any new ideas. So it seems like when they're talking about boundaries, sometimes they're talking about being reactive and wanting other people to be different. And it looks like most of y'all are old enough to know that when we want people to be different, we're not going to be happy, if that makes sense. There seems to be a direct correlation between how much I want other people or the world to be different and my own happiness. And then there's another level, of course, where I might try to make people be different with judgment, blame, criticism, anger, what we call guilt trips. So this thing of boundaries is an interesting thing to explore when playing around with the boundaries of idea of boundaries. One of my granddaughters helped me with that a little bit. Years ago, she's 18, 19 now. She is the youngest one. Years ago, her parents went to Paris for a week and asked me to babysit the two girls. And I was cooking dinner, and I went into the bedroom and said to Sierra, the youngest one, you need to clean up your room and help us set the table for dinner. And she said, I don't want to clean my room. I said, I understand. She said, I don't want to. I said, I understand. She said, I'm not gonna. I'd like you to clean your room and help us make dinner. And she said, like this, Papa, if you make me clean my room, I won't love you anymore. I said, oh my goodness. We now have this huge boundary between me and my granddaughter. And she's learned to weaponize love. I was impressed. So the other part of it is, I do know where she learned that. I knew her great-grandma, and I knew her grandma, and I know her mama, and I know her. The games of the parents are handed down to the children for 7 generations, apparently. So that was one of the games. So my granddaughter set up this boundary between us, that if I behave the way she wants me to, then her heart is open and she loves me. If I don't behave the way she wants me to, her heart closes and she doesn't love me anymore. And for her, it's like love has become a trade rather than an act. So that sets up some distance between us. It makes it hard to connect because I'm not behaving the way she wants me to. Well, fortunately, she's 19 now, I think, and she's in a relationship, so she's learning about this stuff. And she asked me the other day, how do I make my, I'm not going to mention his name, how do I make my boyfriend be different? I said, tell me if that's what you want. She said, yes, I want him to be different. And I said, tell me how that works. And she said, I get mad at him when he won't be different. And then tell me what happens next. She said, he has to work real hard to make me like him again. Okay. And you want him to be different. So, yeah, I think I got it. She said, Papa, I know how people should be. And I'm thinking, run for president, baby. Do it now. Yeah. So, you ever heard anything while you're a teenager? Move out while you know everything? Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's not going to move out. So anyway, I'm learning from my granddaughters how she views the world in relationships. And she shares with me a little bit some of the difficulties she has with what she calls her boyfriend. And she shares about how she behaves when he won't be the way she wants him to be. And that he has to work real hard to get back in her favor. So she sets up these boundaries that seem to have more to do with control than they do with anything else. So thinking about that for myself and my own boundaries with people, there's a gentleman at the gym who's from Eastern Europe, and when he talks, he likes to get like right here. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. So I'm in the gym with him, and I'm moving backwards, and he's moving forwards. And finally, I get up and said, Rudy, you know, his name's Rudy, I'm sorry. I said, Rudy, we don't stand that close in America. And he said, I know, I don't know what's wrong with you all. I said, I'm sure it's me. Give me a little space, okay? So his boundary thing and my boundary thing are different. I seem to require a lot of personal space. And for him, he likes to get real close. And then there's other things with boundaries where people like to touch sometimes. And sometimes I'm kind of not into hugging. And it's a little bit awkward. So I realize that's my boundary stuff. So my internal critic says, what's the matter with you? Why don't you want to hug everybody? And then I'm thinking, if my internal critic is sitting over there, I'm thinking, well, you and I don't have too good a relationship. And you want to talk to me about other people's relationships. So almost no matter what I do, my internal critic has some an evaluation and diagnosis and labels about my behavior. So one of the things I'm doing, I understand that there's some internal stuff going on with boundaries. That there seems to be a part of me in my mind, let's call it my internal critic, and I'll give him the chair over there. Our relationship. It seems my relationships with other people are sometimes reflective of this relationship. Like when my internal critic is very busy, and here's the other part, when I'm listening and agreeing with my internal critic, having it go on and talk is one thing. Listening and agreeing is a whole different trip. So apparently when I agree with my internal critic, what seems to happen is my serotonin drops. My stress hormones go up. So I'm realizing that a lot of my relationships with the world have to do, mirror sort of my relationship with my internal critic. And most of you know, if you've heard me speak about this before, the internal critic is inherited. We don't have that when we're born. If you all have had children, you know that when your children are little, they're not self-critical. I think it's saying to be as little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And for me, that's translated to be without judgment, either internal or external judgment. One of my other grandchildren told me that at school, she went to an evangelical school, and she learned not to judge other people. So I wanted to know from her, tell me about judging yourself. She said, no, Papa, it's only important not to judge other people. I don't know, baby, that seems to be one half of it. If that's yin, there might be a yang. So sometimes it might be easier not to judge other people if I'm not into a lot of self-judgment. And she was a little young, it didn't make sense to her. But this grandchild's getting married next Friday, and so she's learning a lot about relationship and judgments and how all that works, or it doesn't work. So a lot of the stuff about boundaries that's being studied now seems to have a direct relationship to my internal world. The other thing that's been sort of in my face recently is that my relationship with other people, my relationship with my self-talk, my relationship with my body, and the Mother Earth all seem to be in the same frequency. When I'm not listening to my internal critic and I'm not agreeing with that stuff, my relationships with other people are a lot smoother. My connection with what I call spirit is stronger. And so to be clear, spirit, I'm talking about the great mystery. Whatever keeps the wind blowing, whatever keeps my electrons moving, whatever keeps a tree growing, that's what I'm calling spirit. It's not a religious context. It's a little broader than that. So some indigenous people call it the Great Mystery, Wakantaka, under the premise that us two-leggeds really cannot understand spirit. That's a level above us. So we describe it as the Great Mystery. So for Lakota people, it's Wakantaka, the Great Mystery. So my relationship with the Great Mystery and the other two-leggeds and the four-leggeds and everything seems to be a direct mirror of my internal relationship. It's a weird way to talk, but it's to say how much I like me at any one moment. And I do understand that's a weird way to talk, because when I say how much I like me, that sounds like two, the I and the me. I like me, or I judge me. And actually, there's only one. There's me and the voice in my mind that tries to pretend that it's I. Have you ever noticed how many people say, I've learned that I judge myself? Who is the I? And who is the self that gets judged? And which one's real? If I didn't have the I when I was born, that kind of answers the question. So for a lot of us, we see the internal critic, the one that creates difficulty in relationships and sets up boundaries in weird ways, as an inheritance. It was given to us after we were born. It's not our fault. It is part of our spiritual journey. In some traditions, the internal critic, the one that sets up boundaries with people that might be a little rigid, is known as the shadow side. And part of the spiritual journey is to face the shadow, the judgment that lives within me that I inherited. And that judgment is pretty easy to find. A friend of mine that's a physician told me that when he goes to the grocery store, H-E-B, for example, and the lady behind the counter, if she's frowning when she's checking him out, his judge tells him it's his fault. And he doesn't know the lady, and he never met her before. But if she's frowning, he has this automatic assumption it must be him. So he found one half of the judgment. Let's call that the yin. That he believes that people are unhappy, it must be him. So he should change, he should be different, so people won't be happy. And then he told me the next week when he came in that the polarity existed. If that was the yin, then the yang existed. So asking for clarification, he said, I found the yang, the other part of judgment, at the same grocery store, in the same line. So really, 15 only line. He said, yeah. Somebody in front of me put 30 in a 15 only line. He said, so it wasn't the lady behind the counter who was judging, it was me judging. So I realized I'm hypersensitive to the idea of other people judging me. And I realized that's directly related to how much my mind judges other people. I'm hoping that makes sense. You can't have more east than you have west. They are equal. It's the way the Great Mystery set it up. So apparently within ourselves, the amount of self-judgment that I agree to and I listen to correlates with how much external judgment I'm aiming at the world. So my granddaughter asked me, Papa, how do I stop judging people? And the answer was fairly clear, although not simple. I begin to explore how much self-judgment is going on. If I want to diminish some of these rigid boundaries I have with people, where I'm like this, instead of like this. Like my nephew at Sundance, Vernell, I asked him one year, could I bring some more Caucasian people up here? And he said, our arms are always open. So that's a teaching for me. It's the place I'd like to see myself, that my arms are always open. So I'm learning that the amount of self-judgment that I listen to and agree with seems to be directly proportional to the amount of judgment my mind lays on other people. And I understand now at a deeper level, at least I think I do. Next week it may be different. But at the moment today, I understand that if I don't want people or the world to be different, I don't get upset. And it's taken me a whole bunch of years to understand the simplicity of that. That the only time I ever get upset now is when I want other people to be different. That seems fairly straightforward. So I'm looking at how often my mind wants other people to be different. I'm looking again at my boundaries, my relationships with the great mystery, with the mother, with everybody, as a reflection of how much self-criticism, self-blame, self-judgment I'm still listening to and agreeing with. Working in a session with somebody the other day, the lady said to me, I discovered that my internal judge judges me for having a judge. Yeah, it's kind of a tight circle into hell. It's a real quick road into the dark side. However, she became aware of it, and it became kind of ridiculous. Her judge judges her for everything. So her awareness is increasing, and the benefit of this is her choice is increasing. The more she's aware of this judgmental program that creates these weird boundaries with people, the more she has choice about whether or not to agree. If I agree with people should be different, and I know how they should be, I'm upset. If I agree that everybody is a creation of the great mystery, and it's up to me to see the God in all of them, I'm a lot less upset. The other part of this medicine way is the assumption, the belief, the foundation, actually, that the great mystery will send people to be in my life, for me to be with, to learn how critical I am of other people, or my mind is of other people. I want to be clear about that. The voice in my mind that judges me and judges other people is not me. I'm the human being who suffers from that voice. That voice is not me. I did not have that voice when I was born. Sometimes I call that voice I, which helps the voice hide. That's why some people call it the shadow side. It's back there in the shadows, rapping, judging, criticizing, blaming me and everybody else. So part of the issue with boundaries with me, as I understand at this point, is if somebody I'm with is very self-critical, and at the moment I'm very self-critical, our boundaries are going to get a little messy. If I can be with people who are very critical or self-critical, and I'm not criticizing them, my boundaries seem to be clear. That's them and this is me. When I'm into a lot of self-criticism and I'm believing it, and I'm with somebody who's very self-critical, the boundaries are very murky, which means I begin to react to them. So part of this medicine says that the great mystery, Spirit, will send people to help me find this, if I'm curious. If I want to learn about this stuff that I inherited, and I might want to drop it, Spirit, the great mystery, will send people to help me see it and experience it. And I'm not sure about you all. For me, the way my training went was to have us understand that when I'm physically upset and I'm emotionally upset and my mind is in beta, rapid thoughts, that this is a spiritual issue. When I'm physically, emotionally, and mentally upset, it's a spiritual issue. All four dimensions are involved. Sometimes I used to think that when I'm upset and I'm angry, I'm pretty far away from spirit. It seems now that when I'm upset and I'm angry and I'm critical, spirit is kind of shaking me, saying, wake up, wake up. This is the moment. This is what you asked to learn. It's going on right now. So part of somebody that helped me with that was Martin Luther King Jr. He said once before he was assassinated, any fool can be cool when times are good. Show me how you are when things are not the way you want them to be. So I'm thinking that's pretty much it. When my sweetie is the way I want her to be, when she's doing things I criticize, just so you know, I'm talking about my dog right now. She's much easier to live with. I'm wondering how often that's been said to me. Yes. Okay, so this medicine is exploring, we call it stalking ourselves. We stalk our reactions to other people. We know that when we're reacting to an event or people, the great mystery created this event or sent these people to help me see how quickly my mind can move into my training. My training is judgment, criticize, blame, self-pity, fear, and self-importance. Do you all know? I bet you know. The amount that my mind judges other people and wants them to be different is equal to my self-pity. Now that's humbling. If you get that correlation, the amount that my mind judges other people and wants them to be different is equal to my self-pity. For me, that's a humbling awareness. It's weird. I'm so much easier to accept being angry than I am accepting self-pity. So self-pity is the one I'm looking for now. And fortunately, the great mystery is sending some events to help me find my self-pity. Thank you, Creator. Oh, poor me, the traffic's dense. Oh, poor me, my hip hurts. Oh, poor me, oh, poor me. It's really different than, thank you, Creator, for this day. Thank you for these people that I can be with today. Thank you for an opportunity to share this medicine. Thank you, Creator, for this opportunity. As I share this medicine, I remember what it is I'm trying to learn. So thank you all for this opportunity. Thank you to Rudy and Zed and Magic musicians. Thank you all. It's good to hear you when I walk in the door. Wopila, that means thank you. Doksha.
Take a moment while standing to feel yourself grounded on Mother Earth. Feel that grounding connection to where you stand, those around us. To feel in standing the boundaries we call our body. And feel a willingness to move beyond that boundary and to be open and receptive to the wisdom of releasing judgment, of releasing our need to defend ourselves by changing the world and those in it to suit our needs, and to be instead open and receptive to life just as it is now. from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. Feel the willingness to be present to all that is and all that is becoming. From a place of love, acceptance, and gratitude. Feel that love and gratitude embrace all of creation, knowing truly we are one. May you, may we, and all beings be blessed by your willingness to experience and express this. We are one. And so it is.